Greg Beltzer, Chief Customer Officer here for Agentforce. Let's start off with who you are, what your title is, and who the heck do you work for?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Stan Konopka. I'm VP of Digital Technology here at SharkNinja, and I look after Agentforce.
Very cool. How long have you been with SharkNinja?
So I've been here almost 3 years here in lovely London.
And although this has nothing to do with Agentforce, where did the name SharkNinja come from, besides most likely from a 6-year-old boy?
So actually, SharkNinja is it's one company but two brands, right? So we have Shark, that's the the beauty, the vacuums, etc. Ninja is our kitchen brand.
So I'm pretty sure that you guys are leaning into this AI thing pretty heavily. Therefore, your title.
We are embracing AI across the company. So this is across all departments. So whether it's productivity tools or helping us, enable our workflows to be more productive, that all comes together, and we're really leaning into it. I think one of the areas that's really exciting, obviously, is what we're doing with Salesforce, and what we're really trying to do there is, enable a seamless conversation with our customers, right? Whether they're researching our products, buying, troubleshooting, or even, setting up one of our products for the first time. We want that experience to be seamless.
When you first started getting started, with Agentforce, brand new product, had a lot on the roadmap. Let's talk about the early days, which maybe you just buried deep within your brain somewhere.
We move really fast, right? We launch around 25 products a year, which is
crazy.
It's crazy. It's a lot. And I think, the other thing is we operate across a lot of markets, right?
Yep.
So from a customer experience standpoint, that's all got to keep up, right? And I think when we looked at our contact center, for example, our call center volume, our interactions, we saw a huge opportunity. Customers are asking questions related to product support, where their orders are. They're curious about what product best fits their needs. And at the onset, we saw a pretty big opportunity to take advantage of self-service through a unified platform such as Salesforce to address these queries, right? And that's to kind of help free up our agents to do more value-added stuff, right? And also, at the end of the day, allow our customers to have a world-class experience through self-service. So rather than bolting on a separate tool, AI-enabled or otherwise, and hope it integrates, we could build agents that connect it all and generally know our customers.
What were some of the early blockers that you ran into? And as a secondary question, at what point in the journey did you realize, okay, you know what, these agents might be a little harder to build than we thought?
We're all excited, but let's be honest, this was new territory, as you kind of alluded to, right? So there's a bit of nerves. We are committing to being an early adopter, and that might mean you figure things out in real time. And that was certainly our case. But I think what pulled us through and what continues to add value is a new kind of mindset, which is, let's start with an MVP, prove the value, and then scale. We give ourselves permission to figure things out. We learn from it and we move forward quickly. Were there challenges and opportunities? 100%. I think, to start with, I think we had to kind of relook at our operating model. We quickly learned that there are actually multiple layers that you got to think about, right? Where agents, it's all great, the technology's there. I think, but it's only as good as the data and the knowledge and the product catalog. There's new concepts which we hadn't considered before, things like conversation design. Those changes, they need to be implemented quickly, right? If the conversation is slightly clunky, you need to go in there and change that fast. So this idea of iteration is very important. In some cases, you implement it, and the real learning is from the customer interactions, right? So when they're using the agents, they're giving you that real-time feedback. So planning is great, but you can't whiteboard your way to understanding every customer interaction.
Right.
You put something live and feel it through. And I think that's where that iteration muscle, you gotta build that. That doesn't come
Yes.
from day one. So
Yeah.
in our personal shopper use case, which is our guided shopping experience that went
Mhm.
live December, we quickly realized that early engagement metrics weren't telling the whole story, right? We wanted to be able to connect agent interactions to attributed revenue and
Of
these
course.
things. When leadership asks, is it working? You want to be able to answer with confidence rather than
Yeah.
approximation. So that's something we continue to work on today.
To your point earlier about the iteration, there's a different expectation for when you go and use ChatGPT and it gives you a wrong answer or hallucination. Because we've all been on the internet for decades. We've been doing searches. We know the internet is full of bad information. When I go and say, "Why am I getting this error on my vacuum?" Um, Stan, I expect SharkNinja to give me the right answer when you're talking about the data, which is where I have seen these agents really start to either be prohibitive to get to scale or not. Tell me a little bit about what SharkNinja did around the data, because your pace of innovation is so fast.
To start with, it is all about the data. There's ways that you need to work to make the um, documentation and the knowledge that you may already have around all these documents AI ready, right? That also means that this knowledge, which we've accumulated over many years,
Mhm.
needs to be formatted, and we prioritized it. We chose premium SKUs first, and we went through the work to do that. So it's
Sure.
AI all over the place, but getting that data AI ready is very important. And I think the last piece, and this it may not exist in some of the other agents you see online, is really thoughtful guardrails.
Mm.
So the guardrails are what keeps the conversation going in a certain direction. And I think we all had the experience where AI in some cases is eager to please, right? That you don't want, right? So in our case, to make sure that the brand is reflected accurately in the agent. There's a lot that goes into guardrails. So,
Yes.
working with our partners, doing the conversations, the tone, the data, the guardrails, all those things I think come together in a way that creates this experience. Because you could have it 95% correct, but that last 5% can make it feel clunky. So, that
That's the
is some
bar.
of the other piece about squeezing out that 5% is getting humans to just relentlessly pressure test it. We engaged with our call center representatives as we said, look, guys, help us to make this agent as best as we possibly can. And we came up with an attack the bots scheme, right? Where
Yeah.
we said, look, guys, each of you, for a few minutes a day, ask the toughest questions to the agents, try to trip them
Mhm.
up, try to break them. I say this all the time and all things AI that we do is, get subject matter experts who know their stuff to test the AI. And that's where the magic happens, I think.
Again, getting to the personal shopper, that didn't happen on day one, right? It's not like you went to, okay, guess what? We're ready. We're ready for the personal shopper. There was a build to this. Now that it's up and running and you got it in time for the holiday season last year,
Yeah.
what do you want next? What do you want next from this personal shopper?
I'm really excited for the pipeline we've got set up. We're already live in North America. Now we're going to Europe. So it's an entirely new continent to unlock. In terms of the long term vision, I think, where my head is at is, helping every SharkNinja customer having, a personal AI companion that makes purchase and ownership effortless, right? For the moment they start the research
Yep.
to they need support 3 years later or whatever it is, one iteration at a time, learning as we go,
Mhm.
relying on partners like you guys to help us do that. So that's kind of where I see things going.
What are you worried about to get there as you get to that ultimate experience?
Where we really need to continue to work. And I say this all the time, and it may surprise you to hear this from a technology leader of 25 years, but it's really less about the tech and more about the people, right? Because as you iterate here, how do we continue to upskill to adopt these new ways of working? How do we make sure things like change management don't slow us down and are
Right.
complementary in what we do? How do we make sure that our partners in the business continue to lean into the iteration that it takes to keep these things alive and maturing, right? So I think that's a big one. It's like, watering the plant. You can't just water it for a day and expect it to bear fruit over time.
To that brand new customer who just bought Agentforce today, what do you recommend them do?
Be prepared for a journey, right? You got to embrace the iteration.
Buckle in.
Yeah, buckle up. It's going to be fun. You're going to learn a lot. And I think, tactically, what I would say is, focus on starting with one high value use case and prove it out, right? Build on the success, instrument it properly from day one. Don't try to do everything. Set expectations. On top of that as well, I think invest in content and data foundations early, right? Understand how AI digests information, right? Because without structured, reliable knowledge underneath, the agent experience will plateau. I would say the other piece that is huge is build as we discussed, build that iteration muscle, right?
Yeah.
From day one, create the feedback loops, do the conversational workshops if you can. And then lastly, really understand and bring in your frontline teams early, right? They know the customer better than any engineer does technically, right? So, your CX team can become your most valuable testers and co-creators. I think the teams that will win with agents are the ones that they're not the ones that get it right the first time. They're the ones that collaborate and learn the fastest, right? So that would be my my guidance there.
I love it. This isn't a build it once and then you're good to go. That pace of innovation, from your standpoint, the amount of data you're generating, the amount of knowledge articles you have to create, that is also not slowing down, right? Are you ever going to be able to sit down and pat yourself on the back and say, okay, I'm done. I'm good. I'm done. I can just go to the bar. I can go to the pub.
It's important to celebrate, small wins as well as big ones. I mean, look, we just surpassed earlier last week 250,000 conversations.
Amazing.
Right? That's 250,000 opportunities to learn and improve. And I think, it's just the sky's the limit.
Job security, Stan. That's how we look at that, right? Yeah. There's gonna be more. Well, look, it's a fantastic company. It's a fantastic story. I really appreciate you taking time out today to tell us your story.
Thanks, Craig. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you, Stan.